Once you understand what I said in that original talk, you understand everything that has baffled us about our friends who vote Democrat. You know, they're not stupid in the general sense, right? They're not evil. They're not. So why is it that so many people that we know, loving, caring, generous, otherwise smart people like my cousin, why is it they ignore the facts, reject reason, and invariably side with evil over good, wrong over right, ugly over beautiful, profane over profound, and failure over success? The modern liberal is not only always wrong, he is always as wrong can be. Everything he believes is diametrically opposed to the truth and always to the benefit of the evil, failed, and wrong. How do you look at the Middle East with this tiny liberal democracy, lowercase l, lowercase d, of Israel? This good and wonderful nation that is everything liberals are supposed to love. In addition to freedom of speech and freedom of assembly and so much freedom of religion, that the Muslim holy site, the Dome of the Rock, actually has place of pride above the holiest Jewish site. How do you look at this tiny, wonderful, liberal democracy of Israel with its gay pride parades and its woman prime minister back in the 1960s? And as a liberal decide that the problem in the Middle East is not Islam, the most homophobic, xenophobic, misogynistic, and I do believe just a little bit anti-Semitic ideology on the planet today, and decide the problem is not only the Jews, but the Jews are so bad that it's the only nation on the entire planet that they want to boycott and divest from and to strangle to death economically are the Jews of Israel. In the 1980s, by no coincidence, when the first babies born after World War II, who became the children of the 60s, who became the powers that be in academia and education and media and the Democratic Party and entertainment, in the 1980s, thinking was outlawed. It was deemed by these new powers that be to be a hate crime. Here's the thinking behind the outlawing of thinking. Anything that you believe, anything that I believe, anything the people at home believe, anything anybody believes, is going to have been so tainted by your prejudices. Prejudices we all have. Prejudices we can't help but have. Prejudices based on things like the color of your skin, the nation of your ancestry, your height, your weight, your sex, and so on. Anything that you believe is going to have been so tainted by your prejudices that the only way not to be a bigot is to never think at all. Indiscriminateness of thought does not lead to indiscriminateness of beliefs. Indiscriminateness of thought leads invariably, inevitably. There's no place else it can lead them to but to siding with evil, failure, and wrong. Why? Because if nothing, no culture, no religion, no form of governance, no familial construct, if nothing is better than anything else, success is unjust. Right? Why should a person, a culture, a religion, a nation, why should something succeed if it's not better than anything else? The same point, but in the inverse, to the modern liberal, to the indiscriminate, failure, as proved by nothing other than the fact that it has failed. Failure is proof positive that somehow the failure has been victimized. Right? After all, why should a person, a culture, a religion, a nation, why should something fail if it's not worse than anything else? Simply by extension, if success and failure is proof of injustice, great success and great failure is proof of great injustice. And ultimately, exceptional success and exceptional failure is proof of exceptional injustice, at which point the social justice warriors jump into action, and out of a sense of justice, they must tear down what is exceptionally good, what is exceptionally successful. You know, we wonder why it is, of all the nations on this planet, there are two that the modern liberal hate. There's America, and there's Israel. Are these two nations really the worst nations on the planet? Are they really the way that the leftists portray them? Quite the opposite. The hatred that the left has for America and for Israel comes from the fact that these two nations are the best nations on the planet. They are the most successful nations. They are the most prosperous nations. They are, in their way, given how tiny Israel is, the strongest nations, able to fend off all those enemies around them. And it's Israel's success that proves their evil. So these people who claim that Israel's committing genocide, nothing could be further from the truth. The population in the Gaza Strip has actually multiplied since Israel took control from Jordan and from Egypt of the West Bank and Gaza Strip. It's the worst genocide in the history of the world. Apparently the Jews have created everything except genocide. That they're not so good at because the population has actually grown in these areas. And liberals who call for Israel's strangulation know this. That's what's going. But the key to liberalism is you're not allowed to know what you know. Because that would require thinking, that would require discriminating thought, that would require comparisons. And so if Israel and Islam, Judaism and Islam are equally good and equally right, how do you explain Israel's phenomenal success? Conversely, how do you explain Islam, especially in the West Bank and Gaza Strip, how do you explain Islam's total failure? There's only two possibilities. Either those two religions are not equally good and equally right, and if you believe that, you're no longer a liberal. But if you start with the idea that you're so open-minded, you're so liberal, that you're not going to recognize better and worse, then the only explanation for Israel's success is that somehow they've cheated. And because they are the most successful nations, successful peoples in all of human history, save for Judeo-Christian America, they must be the greatest injustice in all of human history, and then they work backwards to make up whatever facts they need, in order to support their preordained conclusion that the exceptional success of the Jews must be because they've somehow cheated, and the exceptional failure of the Islamic world must be because somehow they've been cheated.